Tucker, and we are live. Hello, everybody. Wednesday night fantasy football by committee is what FlurrySports is calling their fantasy football shows from here on out. So, welcome to technically the first episode of Fantasy Football by Committee. Trevor Land is to the right. I am Zach Bruner, and tonight, in honor, I guess, of the massive lottery that was finally won last week by an unfortunate Illinoisan who may be dead at this point. He definitely has a bounty on his head. But we are going to be giving you some fantasy football lottery tickets, which I'm not even sure if this is a typical term other people use, but it's a term I've used for the past few years. So I'll describe it first. It's basically someone you can draft in the last couple of rounds of your fantasy football draft, or you could pick up right now. And obviously, we're talking about first week in August. So that's what we are basing our ADP on. But someone who's essentially free, super low investment, but could pay off in a massive way. So we're talking about someone you could draft instead of a kicker in the final round of your draft. And because of an injury, because of a fantastic training camp, all of a sudden they are start worthy at their position for your fantasy football team. Does that make sense, Trevor? Did I describe that correctly?
Yep.
Cool. That's all I needed. And obviously, as we head into the summer a little bit more, I just talked about this with a recent video on the FlurrySports YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to that. The ADP is going to start getting a little bit more accurate. There's more humans doing mock drafts, so there's less auto picks where, the auto picked CPU has to fill their starting lineup before they move on to the bench, which means quarterbacks, tight ends, defenses, kickers, their ADP's inflated. So obviously, as we progress with the summer, ADP will figure itself out a little bit, but we are basically looking at guys who will probably be there in the last couple rounds of your draft, assuming you are playing in a 10 or 12 team league. They may be available to pick up if you've already drafted. And we should just start at the quarterback position because I don't think there's going to be too many. This is obviously a position that's extremely deep, but it's hard to crack into that top 10, top 12. Just looking at data from fantasydata.com over the past week of drafts, there are 24 quarterbacks being drafted in the top 160, which is kind of crazy. Trevor, in your opinion, let's say a typical 12-team draft, do you see, I would assume there's a max of 18 quarterbacks drafted in a 12-team draft. Does that seem right?
Yeah. Obviously, I think if you have less experienced people, I think that might inflate to about 20, 24, but 18 seems like the norm, I would say.
And I'll just read like the last few in that list then from where I put the cutoff. So 15 is Kirk Cousins, Deshaun Watson. I guess we'll see now, but he was 16. Tua Tagovailoa, 17. And then Justin Fields, 18. After that's Matt Ryan, Davis Mills, Carson Wentz, Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, Mac Jones. I'm going to guess those guys are probably going to be available for most people. If I'm looking at that list, I guess in your opinion, who do you think has the highest potential to finish maybe top 12 on a points per basis or just overall? I can give you some time to start or think if you need it.
Did you mention Mariota? Marcus Mariota?
He's even further down. He's 28, but you like Mariota as a guy
Yeah,
investment?
with his legs, that automatically gets you something. Like we saw with Taysom Hill, you don't really need a great quarterback throwing wise to be able to get you a lot of points. And people forget he was pretty solid in Tennessee. All he really needed there was a tight end in Delaney Walker, and guess what? He's got Kyle Pitts here. He's got Drake London. He's got some other weapons there too. Extremely weak division. Obviously, he plays Tampa Bay twice, but outside of that, his legs. He kind of reminds me of a poor man's version of Jalen Hurts. I don't think he'll be as good on the ground, but when his legs are there, consistency's going to be there for a guy that is going to be on the waiver wire.
Yeah, I like Mariota. I've been talking him up as someone I was looking to pair with Deshaun Watson. Now, who knows? But if I am like waiting at quarterback, I didn't get one of those guys. I'm fine going with Mariota to start the season. I don't mind his schedule if I remember that correctly. I you're just trying to get through the first few weeks essentially if you have Mariota, and then you can see who's good elsewhere. Who knows what happens in Seattle? Maybe Drew Lock figures it out. I highly doubt it, but never know. Maybe one of the Pittsburgh guys turns out to be somewhat reliable since they have so many weapons there. A couple other lottery tickets I do like. They're going ahead of Mariota, but Trevor Lawrence, obviously potential sky high, getting taken first overall. He has quite a few weapons there. He also has legs, and Doug Peterson has been a quarterback whisperer of sorts. I like him as, again, a free option. If I can pick him in a 16 team league as like my backup, that's even better. But I think there's potential he finishes top 12. I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially if he's playing from behind a lot. And Jameis Winston would be the other one that I would be looking at. Again, Jarvis Landry, Michael Thomas is looking good. You got Chris Olave. You got Troutman, who is an athletic tight end that no one's talking about. Obviously, Taysom Hill. My only worry about Jameis Winston is Taysom Hill. And that's a totally fair reason to not draft him. We just got to see how they use Taysom Hill. If they use him how I've been saying a lot, how I would love for them to use him just as like a red zone guy, that kills Jameis Winston's value, obviously. But if they don't do that, then, what's to say that he's not a top 12 quarterback? Because I would assume he airs it out a lot more often than he did with Sean Payton last year.
Yeah, and just listing the guys off that you listed off, even if you maybe don't get a Lawrence or a Mariota, this just kind of drives home the point that you don't need to take a second quarterback, especially
Correct.
this year. I feel like, and I as well fall into this trap where you need to have all your backup quarterbacks, running backs, wide receiver, and to your point, like you touched on earlier, really only have to get through the first couple weeks. It seems like every year, a lot of people just forget how it works and forget the mad scramble for week 1, week 2, week 3 waivers. These second quarterbacks are probably going to be dropped in that waiver scrum.
Mm-hmm.
So you might as well not even, take a second quarterback like a Kirk Cousins or whatever. If you can get him as your one, fine, but no reason to reach on a quarterback, so to speak.
And honestly, I know this might not be fully possible, but if you somehow went into the season knowing you're just going to stream the best matchup between, let's call it Trevor Lawrence, Jameis Winston, maybe Mac Jones, Daniel Jones, Jared Goff, Mariota, Zach Wilson, like they all can get it done, I feel like. And they all have pretty good weapons actually around them.
Yeah, and people forget. I mean, Jacksonville has, I think they have Marvin Jones as well. Evan Engram has struggled a little bit from what I've heard, but I mean,
Yeah.
they at least have bodies there. Like they at least have names. It's not some guy from Fresno State University Valley Community College. There are guys there that you can throw to for sure.
They do have a guy from UW Platteville, though, and he might be the tight end one from,
He
the
has to
reports
be.
about Engram.
Hey,
He
you
should
know
be.
what? He almost sets records for the franchise, and I've heard he may or may not be a fan of this show. Until he comes on to prove otherwise, I think he's a big fan of the show.
That is true. Radio silence from the Dan Arnold front. I'm guessing you don't have any other quarterback to talk about that we can move on
Um,
to running back, or you do? Okay.
one that I just find interesting is Davis Mills. I think he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on. I can't get a really good read on him, obviously, because he's in Houston. But at the same time, that is a horrible division, and he looked pretty competent at the very least last year. I would go out on a limb and say he looked like one of the best rookie quarterbacks that was in the league last year. So he's going to be a tough guy to read, obviously, with that Houston offense, but I think he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
Always keep an eye on those Stanford guys. Let's go to running backs, and this is one, at least currently, I don't think there's very many options. Like there's a lot of running backs being taken. Let's see, in the top one, we'll call it 170 draft picks, there's 74 running backs getting taken. In the top 160 draft picks, there's 65 running backs being taken. So people are definitely going running back heavy, which doesn't leave us many options. However, I would throw people like Deontay Foreman into that mix. He's currently going as running back 64, 158 overall in PPR leagues. Apparently, he had a pretty bad fumble today, so watch that. But he is backing up Christian McCaffrey, him and Chuba Hubbard. So I'm not sure if they would go with a bell cow after CMC. I'm guessing they would probably split the snaps. But Foreman, in my mind, would certainly be the red zone guy, short yardage guy, getting the touchdown. So he is someone who could be elevated to a larger role if there were injuries, which seems inevitable with Christian McCaffrey at this point. Kenyon Drake is someone, there's so many mixed reports about him. It's weird. He's coming off of an injury, and because of that, he hasn't practiced as much. And because of that, he's being listed as a third string running back, fourth overall on the depth chart. He's being listed behind Brandon Bolden, who I can only imagine is going to continue doing Patriot things in Las Vegas. But at the same time, they've also said Kenyon Drake looks like the fastest person they've ever seen. He's going to have a massive role in this offense. So I don't know what that means. However, at least to me, Trevor, tell me if you think I'm wrong. It feels like he could have a James White-like role on that offense, don't you?
It feels like it. And the weird wild card thrown in there is Zamir White there as well.
Yeah.
Like that backfield. I mean, I don't want to touch any of them, but if we're talking about Kenyon Drake and looking at the other guys there, I mean, are you really going to take Matt Breida over him? Like, to your point, the names that are down there, I mean, you need an injury for that to be successful. So when you get a guy who doesn't need an injury to at least have a role, I mean, you got to kind of take what you can get.
Right. We're not really expecting them to be anything other than an insurance plan at this point in the offseason, but it's a zero risk, all reward type of thing. And it's paid off for me in the past. I know it's been like a league winning strategy for some people who have drafted early. So we're just giving you some options. And disclaimer, we're not really going to go over rookies, even though there's plenty of rookies that could fit that role. I think Zamir White is one of them. I think someone who is not even being talked about, I'll just mention him really quickly, but Tyrion Davis-Price, the running back in San Francisco, they drafted him in the third round. He was the fifth running back off the board, I believe, in the draft. Like, that you don't make that kind of investment in a running back and not have a plan. And we know with San Francisco, like, they're going to ride the hand. We know they're not going to have a bell cow, so to speak, unless injuries dictate that. So someone like him is going super late if he goes at all. Trey Sermon, obviously, the second year back there, he's somebody like that as well. Who the hell knows? I definitely don't believe in Trey Sermon, but you never know. Maybe he is in super good shape. He shows up and is great. I haven't heard that out of camp yet, but we shall see. One person I am excited to bring up, and there has been good reports about him out of camp. He's been one of two running backs to shine in camp. And of course, I'm talking about Rex Burkhead. I don't. It sucks. I don't want to say it. He's currently going as running back 73, 172 overall. Two running backs have shined in Houston camp. Him and Pierce, the rookie. Not Marlon Mack, who everyone's drafting to be the top running back there, who probably should be. But if he's not making plays in camp, fucking Rex Burkhead's going to be fantasy relevant again. It sucks.
Yeah, Rex Burkhead, I mean, it's weird to say for a lottery ticket, but he just feels like kind of a foolproof plan. Like, no matter how the game plan shakes out, Rex Burkhead is going to be in there. For Marlon Mack, I trust Burkhead over him in the pass catching game. Obviously, I think as a vet, I think they trust him over Pierce. Obviously, he's doing well in camp. He's going to probably have 15 to 20 point games this season. He just seems foolproof no matter what happens. And and a lottery ticket, that's really weird. And Houston is a crap place to be. That whole team is a dumpster fire. But I mean, it might be weird to say that he is probably the second most wanted player for fantasy from Houston.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Houston is. We'll see. We'll see what Houston is. But like Pep Hamilton's their offensive coordinator. I love Pep Hamilton. I think he's going to do great things. So, I mean, I think there's players you can buy into on their team. And if Rex Burkhead's getting, let's call it 40% of the snaps there, I guess, like he may have to be owned. And right now he's not getting even close to drafted. So you have to at least look at him. Do you have any running backs you specifically want to talk about?
Brian Robinson Jr. for Washington is interesting to me. I don't understand Washington, kind of like Miami with running backs.
Mm-hmm.
They talked how Antonio Gibson was going to be the next Christian McCaffrey going into last season. They used him and McKissick kind of well last season. Obviously, injuries hurt Gibson, all that. But to have such high praise and then bring him in, and it wouldn't be too surprising if he takes away goal line snaps or goal to go snaps.
Mm-hmm.
He seems like a guy who could be a very good vulture to me. It's just this Washington backfield could shake out a number of ways. And I think he again, is kind of like Davis Mills. He's not a guy that you want to take, but if you do take him, I think it probably pays off more than not. And to your point, these are lottery tickets. So if he doesn't pay off, I mean, what? You lose out on a slightly better kicker? That doesn't hurt you too much.
And there's no such thing as a better kicker. That's not a real thing. You can look at the stats. That's not true. But yeah, Brian Robinson, I think in a perfect world in their offense, what they want is they want Antonio Gibson to do more pass catching duties than he did in the past. And to your point, Brian Robinson should be the hammer in the backfield. He should be the one to get the short yardage duties, the goal line duties, steal some touchdowns. But he's also going to get some early down work, I can only assume. Antonio Gibson's not that phenomenal of a runner, despite your favorite fantasy analyst telling you so, because he averaged 4 yards per carry in 3rd and 4 situations or something. I don't fucking know. But Antonio Gibson's not a phenomenal pure running back, but he is a phenomenal football player, and they just need to use him better. And I think Brian Robinson should give them the ability to do so. We shall see. I don't know.
I mean, you did it was a mistake to mention Antonio Gibson again. It took everything in my being not to shame him on the show the first time. But what's that quote? You can find a stat for everything.
Yeah.
Watch his film and look at how he performed over the course of the whole last season and throughout the stats, and tell me if he's this phenomenal guy that has to go in the second round. That's all I'll say about him.
No disagreements from me. One running back. You have Fantasy Football Calculator ADP ahead of you. I'm using fantasy data. Let me know, where's Khalil Herbert being drafted for you?
Oh boy.
For me in PPR leagues, and this is data over the past week, he's being selected 197 overall. And that's surprising to me. Like, I would have thought he would be going a lot higher. Is he even listed for you?
I don't think he's even listed in the top 250 because I have Rex Burkhead at 251. I don't think he's in the top 265.
Yeah, he's going 79 for me, or running back 79, 197 overall. Obviously, he looked really good for Chicago when he had to be the lead guy last year. I think David Montgomery is a really, really good running back. However, their offensive line is absolute dog trash, and David Montgomery is going to get hit. And it wouldn't surprise me if he got hurt, unfortunately. Like, we don't want to see that happen, but that wouldn't be a surprise. And because of that, Khalil Herbert is certainly, you can see an avenue where he's super fantasy relevant even off the get-go. But then also you look at the Chicago offense, let's name the playmakers. You got Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, I think is the second wide receiver. Komet, obviously, at tight end. Like, there isn't very many good skill position players. So if I'm Chicago and wanting to get something to work, I would want my best players on the field. And I think Khalil Herbert's one of their best players. It wouldn't surprise me if they do a split backfield. I need to watch more Herbert film, to be completely honest. I'm not sure how he is as a route runner. I almost wonder if they can split him out at all. But I think he's very intriguing as a lottery ticket, obviously. And I know Trevor and I are about to do a draft coming up where return yards are really heavily weighted. If for some reason you play in a league where return yards are heavily weighted, Khalil Herbert's going to get some returning duties most likely. And hey, that's a lot of points. That's a lot of points. We're getting 0.2 for every yard. So shit, that racks up quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, this isn't. It's odd to say this, and I know people who maybe are tuning in for the first time maybe might take this with a grain of salt, but over the course of the past couple years, I've had a pretty good knack of figuring out when guys are going to get hurt. I I said Lamar Jackson wouldn't last till the Green Bay game. Look what happened there. I called a couple other things. To your point about David Montgomery, I just have an inkling he's going to get hurt. Like in the first 2 years, he missed one game. Last year, he missed just four. I mean, that is unheard of for a back. We know he's going to get absolutely bruised. The miles add up on him. And he's playing for the Bears, to your point. They don't have a lot of playmakers. They're going to need to ride his shoulders. In every league that I'm taking David Montgomery, or in every mock draft I'm taking him, I think you have to take Herbert, even if you don't have special teams. You take special teams into account. I think you have to take him for sure.
Yeah, he's just a guy. He's too good to not be drafted at this point. I think the last running back I specifically want to talk about, and this is my favorite lottery ticket that I've been taking in every single draft possible, Eno Benjamin. On Sleeper Fantasy right now, he is 0% owned in the leagues that have already drafted. It should be at least 0.1% because he's in at least 4 leagues because I have him in 4 leagues. He is someone I wrote an article about a month ago how Cliff Kingsbury called him a starting running back in the NFL. The offensive line now came out this past week talking about how good he has looked and how seriously he has taken everything. And I know I'm an offensive line guy, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. But honestly, if you want to figure out what's going on with a team, offense or defense or special teams, whatever, listen to the offensive line, talk to the offensive line, because the offensive line, one, they talk a lot. That's fucking all offensive linemen do. We talk nonstop. And two, we're friends with everybody and we bullshit with everybody and we say it like it is. And by the way, we love drama. So fucking everything goes through the offensive line at some point. And if they're saying this guy's really good, then this guy's really good. He's probably going to be in the Chase Edmonds role, and he's not being drafted. I don't even know what his ADP is here. 287. 287 over the past week. Running back 102 for a guy who's probably going to be a starter or like a 1A, 1B situation. It's crazy.
It just, and to your point, the number that low, I think you said 287, I want to say. Like in most leagues, that's to your point. I mean, you don't even need to draft him as a lottery ticket. Like
No.
he's probably going to be available. Yeah, I mean, with lottery tickets, you got to take the guy who's got the biggest upside, obviously, and you're going to be taking a risk no matter what. So when the risk is high, might as well take a guy who can, pay it off the most. You're not going to take a lottery ticket on James White, who's kind of capped in what he can do. So yeah, I like that a lot. Seems pretty low on the ranking to me.
And so the Cardinals offense should be pretty good, right? They should probably be around that 10 mark. They should be able to move the ball, put up points, whatever. People are acting like James Conner is the only running back. James Conner is being drafted. Let's see here. He's being drafted 32 overall, running back 17. And then Eno Benjamin getting taken 287 overall. Keontae Engram, the rookie, the only other running back that's really challenging Eno Benjamin for the role, is going 281. Like, if anyone truly thinks James Conner is going to be a bell cow, you're a moron. All we've talked about prior to last season is that he is injury prone. When is James Conner going to get hurt? And then he has one season where he doesn't get hurt, and all of a sudden the dude's invincible. Like, that's not going to happen again. So draft, or to your point, you don't need to draft Eno Benjamin. If you've already drafted your league, go to the free agency waivers and pick him up. Luke dropping into the comments is his own biggest fan. At least you got to believe in yourself, Luke. That's good. I like it. But do you have anything else to say about this Cardinals situation? It's just kind of frustrating to me.
It just blows my mind, and I hate that he did so well last year. Not because I have anything against him, but to your point, he's injury prone. Like, I'm sorry, he was a fool's pick last year unless he dropped really far. Like before, in the 3 seasons before in Pittsburgh, he played 13, 10, and 13 games. In his rookie season, he played 14, and he only made it 14 because he barely played that year. So, to your point, he needs to be on the field all the time, and he is so freaking touchdown dependent. It's ridiculous. He just seems like a fool's pick again to me. Now, if he falls, I'm going to take him, but as an Eno Benjamin truther and as a realist, I just don't see the hype in Connor. I love his backups, though.
Well, there's for sure going to be a second running back that has value on this team. You can make the argument that running back is not on the team currently. Like, there's going to be some people getting cut. Look at Miami. They have 15 running backs and none of them are that great. Chase Edmonds could get fucking cut and come back at this point. But, like, someone's going to get cut or get traded. Could you see Myles Gaskin getting traded or cut and come to the Cardinals and be a perfect fit? Absolutely. Something's going to happen. Someone is going to be worth being owned. And right now, when you have to invest nothing to possibly get that guy, you have to do it. It's simple math. Figure it out. Let's do wide receivers. This is probably, I mean, that's obviously the deepest position, but this is probably the most lottery tickets here. One guy who has already seen this jump into relevancy because of an injury in camp. Luke saying the Cardinals need to bring back Andre Ellington. I was an Andre Ellington truther hard. The dude was a stud. Gone too soon. So where is he?
He didn't
Andre,
die.
Are you watching the show, Andre? Come on the show. I'll get you a workout. But someone who has seen that jump into relevancy, who was probably just seen as a lottery ticket or a late ad after your draft, is KJ Hamler. We saw obviously Tim Patrick go down to the season for an injury already. KJ Hamler comes back from his own injury, has been getting praised by coaches and Russell Wilson all week long already anyways. He elevates to that wide receiver 3 spot. He's going to see targets, man. So, like, shit. Like, that's the reason why you take these lottery tickets instead of a kicker in the last round right now. And KJ Hamler, at this point, is still going. Let's see. Over the past week, he has been drafted 204 overall in PPR leagues, wide receiver 88. So, definitely worth a look. He should be seeing targets, and if Jerry Jeudy or Sutton go down, then he elevates even more. And he's a talented dude. It's not like a no-namer getting elevated, you know?
Yeah, and the best part to me is not only that, sometimes with these third, fourth wide receivers, they get kind of mixed in the huddle, in the shuffle, but like there's wide receiver 3 is his floor. Like it because the guys behind him are Seth Williams, Kendall Hinton, Montrell Washington, Tyree Cleveland, Trey Quinn, and Travis Fulgham. I don't think half the world has heard of 5 out of 6 of those guys before now.
Yeah.
So wide receiver 3, like we said, is his floor. We pointed out Tim Patrick at wide receiver 3/2 has been at the end of the year wide receiver 40 pretty much every year. KJ Hamler can do the exact same thing. So I love him as well there.
Shout out Hinton. He was the one who played quarterback during the COVID year. Never forget. He didn't do very well, but shit, he lived out his dream. I love it. And by the way, KJ Hamler currently in sleeper leagues, sleeper fantasy leagues. He is owned in 7% of leagues. So definitely fix that. This next player owned in 10% of sleeper fantasy leagues. Second year wide receiver, Nico Collins. Nico Collins is a really good player. He started to come on a little bit more at the end of last year. Obviously plays for the Houston Texans. Obviously, John Mechie III, I believe is his full name, diagnosed with leukemia. That sucks. Really good rookie. He is obviously out for the entire year. Nico Collins faces zero competition as the wide receiver 2. Lovie Smith called him the perfect complement to Brandon Cooks. And he's a big, athletic, good guy. If you're looking for someone to catch red zone touchdowns, I think Nico Collins could be that guy. And he is currently going 165 overall, wide receiver 75. He clearly needs to be on. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, and I mean, the last 5 weeks of last season, he averaged over 6 targets a game. So obviously the targets are there. He's going to have his ups and downs, but to be able to get an average of 6 targets per game while playing about 63% of the snaps as a rookie, with another rookie quarterback and everything going on in Houston, it seems pretty obvious it can only go up there. And so he's already proven it, and he can be even better. So I like him there as well.
Yeah, again, like all the players I'm mentioning right now, too, they're good football players. It's not even like the role that they could step into is going to generate points. Obviously, opportunity leads to productivity, but when you have talent as well, it just helps even more. And another person who has a great opportunity ahead of him, and he has all the talent in the world, no one has ever questioned that, is Paris Campbell. The dude can ball. He just can't stay on the fucking field. But the Colts clearly are betting on him. They didn't bring anybody else in for wide receiver. They drafted Alec Pierce. I love Alec Pierce. I think he should probably be drafted as well. But by everyone's firsthand accounts in Colts camp, Paris Campbell has been the one flashing. He is very clearly the wide receiver 2 on this offense. And if he stays healthy, he's very clearly going to have a good role, going to produce, I think. I just think he's a good player. And he's going 190 overall in PPR leagues, wide receiver 91. He's getting drafted right between Byron Pringle and Devin Duvernay. Like, just draft Paris Campbell, pick him up on waivers, whatever you got to do. He's really good. And if he stays healthy, he's going to show people that finally.
Well, to your point, he's battled injuries over the last 3 years. So how many games has he played? He's played 15. So he's barely played enough games for one full season. He's had to battle through how many terrible quarterback situations and offensive situations. And even with all of that, he averaged, 6 to 7 points per game in PPR, which is nothing special. But again, that's about as low of a floor as you can get on a guy. And all reports are that he has chemistry with Matt Ryan too. So you put all that stuff together again. Clearly has a talent. Team clearly believes in him, and he's clearly got a role. 3 for 3 there. Can't get any better than that.
And drafted even later than him is Isaiah Mckenzie out of Buffalo. He has been the wide receiver to flash in camp. I think you and I have talked on previous shows or off air, whatever. I believe. At least I am a little bit skeptical of the Gabriel Davis hype. I understand he caught 4 touchdowns last time we saw him. I think we need to chill a little bit on Gabriel Davis. But Isaiah McKenzie apparently is flashing. He's super quick, super shifty. He's a really good athlete. And it sounds like he is demanding a role on this offense, essentially. And if he fills in that slot role, like it sucks for Jamison Crowder and Khalil Shakir, who also are fucking dogs. They're very good. But Isaiah McKenzie's the one doing it. He might get some return duties as well. I'm not for sure. But it sounds like he's going to be a starter by all counts right now. So I think you definitely need to look at him since he's going 198 overall.
Yeah, and Gabriel Davis, if we're being really honest with ourselves, his only big game last year was the AFC Championship game. If he doesn't, produce to start this season, are we really sure Isaiah McKenzie can't kind of turn into the de facto wide receiver 2? I'm not saying Gabriel Davis can't play. I'm not saying Isaiah McKenzie is going to be the wide receiver 1 anytime soon, but Gabriel Davis has not exactly separated himself for me as a wide receiver 2. And to your point, with McKenzie's role, I'm just a lot more confident in him than I am in some guy who had one great game.
I'm just really quick looking up Gabriel Davis's stats, comparing him with Isaiah McKenzie, just because, like, to your point, like, yes, Gabriel Davis has been a 500-yard receiver the past 2 years as essentially a starter. Isaiah McKenzie started with the Broncos, earned his way on to Buffalo, figuring it out. And if he's flashing and if he's looking good, he's way more athletic than Gabriel Davis. I'll just say it right now. Gabriel Davis is a completely different type of receiver. He's a big-bodied, physical receiver. Like, Isaiah McKenzie is going to be underneath there. Like, if you liked Cole Beasley's role in previous seasons, it would behoove the Bills to elevate McKenzie to that role. And apparently, in parentheses here, his nickname's Lil Dirty. I didn't know that, so that's kind of cool. But then they should probably trade Jamison Crowder or something. Maybe to the fucking Cowboys. Or, hey, Packers will take him. Somebody like that. Like, that would make the most sense for Buffalo.
Packers won't take him. We will sign somebody from Walmart, but it'll be the second choice from Walmart. Bill Belichick will get the first guy that turns into a Pro Bowler. We will get the second guy who will be the de facto Amari Rodgers.
True. Is there any other wide receivers you want to talk about?
Just I don't know. You know, for me, there's just so much hate on Kenny Galladay right now.
Yep.
We saw what he did with Stafford. People talking about separation, all this good stuff. I mean, again, go back to when he was in Detroit. He was the de facto number one. He looked damn good. Everybody wanted him. Everybody. And there was a reason he got $18 million. And to your point, too, that you brought up on Lombardi Sweep and other past podcasts, they're pretty much practicing on air, right? Like, it's one-on-one, but still, like, it's not full pads, anything like that. So whenever I hear something gets so negative about a player, especially a player who has been so good when on the field before and getting balls thrown accurately to him, I'm just not buying the dip. So if he dips far, I think he's a hell of a guy. You can do a lot worse.
Yeah, he's the guy that keeps showing up on all my fantasy teams so far this year too. So I really like him a lot as a player. I really like Wan'Dale Robinson. He's going super late, the rookie there for the Giants. They've been using him in a million ways. I could totally see them use him in a Deebo Samuel like role. He's not as powerful as Deebo, but like getting handoffs out of the backfield, stuff like that. I think he needs to be drafted. He's a lottery ticket. A couple of receivers here I'll just name quickly. One person, I'm not sure if he's a lottery ticket, but he's going to be solid. Like, he'll probably be wide receiver 40 at the end of the year. KJ Osborne, slot receiver for the Vikings. He's really good. He has a clear role. I don't think his role grows a lot, so that's why I don't think he's a lottery ticket. But he's going wide receiver 81, 181 overall, or 180 overall. Definitely draft him. Curtis Samuel, you don't know. Curtis Samuel is the versatile, great receiver that everyone wanted last year, right? And then he got that groin injury and never recovered. Who's to say he doesn't recover and play super well this year? He is going 183 overall, so he's free as well. Again, pick him up, see if he does something in the preseason. Then you could either trade him if he does, start him if you have confidence, or you can cut him for your kicker. Who cares? Sterling Shepard, perpetually concussed, but he's there. He's a great player when he's healthy. Josh Palmer, 184 overall. He's the wide receiver 3 for the Chargers. He is someone who could be a lottery ticket if Mike Williams or Keenan Allen go down. They just don't have the wide receiver talent there. I think Palmer is really good, and in the second year, he should be taking steps forward. His only other competition is, I believe his name's Jalen Guyton, and he's not going to fucking take his role. Like, so, he's almost a handcuff for Keenan Allen or Mike Williams at this point in the offseason. So look at him.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of KJ Osborne. Last year, 655 yards, 7 touchdowns, 50 receptions. He did that with 82 targets. Now, I'm not the biggest Kirk Cousins guy, but I'd assume that reception to target ratio comes up at least a little bit. He was wide receiver 39 last year in PPR. He played all 17 games. He's a guy where you've got to expect at some point in the season Justin Jefferson and or Adam Thielen is going to go down for at least 2 games, this is a guy that's going to be at the top of the waivers that week. And even if not, again, Justin Jefferson and Thielen were healthy for a decent amount of the season last year, and he was still wide receiver 39. So he's going late, but he's just the guy that I don't understand going late. I don't think enough people pay attention to, and I really like.
I think I said this in a video earlier this week. A name value is the biggest, most important factor when determining ADP, especially right now. And if you ask 100 NFL fans, maybe 20 could name where KJ Osborne plays. No one knows who KJ Osborne is. Where'd he go to college? Let's see. I have his right here. He went to Buffalo and then Miami. No one would know that.
Which Miami?
Florida, not Ohio.
Oh, I was going to say that would make sense.
True. But yeah, his final 6 games last year, and I know he was on one of my teams. I can't tell you if it was a team that won or not, but he was definitely useful down the stretch. Final 6 games, he had 35 targets, 19 receptions, 290 yards, 5 touchdowns. He went on a streak where he scored 5 touchdowns in 6 weeks. Crazy. Yeah. And Irv Smith, who the hell knows if he's going to stay healthy? He's already hurt. He just had thumb surgery. Osborne's going to see his targets.
Well, on top of that, too, let's say all things considered, those stats you just gave out, let's say those are the first 6 weeks of the season. Those are fantastic numbers. And by the end of the season, as we all know as fantasy players, a lot of times, sometimes you're scraping bottom of the barrel just to see somebody healthy. So to see a guy who can produce that often that late, man, I mean, I don't know why more people aren't taking him. And he does have some return history, not enough to, I think he only had 4 punt returns last year, but, punt returner goes down, if somebody needs to answer the call, he has experience. So you never know there too.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Moving on to tight ends here. Again, this is a position that has their ADP inflated right now because of the CPU mock drafts. It'll settle down a little bit. So the tight ends I'm going to talk about right now, there's a lot of drafts. I don't even see Robert Tonyan getting drafted. He is tight end 17, so that makes sense. I'm going to talk about tight end 17 and lower. Right now, his ADP is 150 for me. But he's someone, especially if you can draft him and if he somehow starts on the PUP list, you can put him into that IR slot. That's super valuable. I don't think he's going to. I actually think there's a decent chance he is able to start the year off the PUP list, which means he'll pretty much play in September at some point. But I think he could have a pretty sizable role on Green Bay's team, given the pass catchers. Trevor, obviously, you're tuned into the Packers as well. Do you agree or disagree with that?
I mean, all you have to ask is who the hell's behind him in Green Bay. I love Big Dog. I love Mercedes Lewis. He's obviously not going to take his role. Is it going to be Tyler Davis or Josiah DeGuara? Hell no. Are any of these wide receivers really going to pop up against him? Obviously, you have Lazard, but Watson still hasn't practiced, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I mean, Dubs is good, but obviously rookie, he could be, point wise a wide receiver 2 for this team for a decent amount of weeks. So to get him as a tight end when he's not even being drafted, it just seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and before last season, obviously he got hurt early. We were lower on him than everybody else was. However, the entire offseason, the talk was how he expanded his route tree. The Packers are going to use him in a variety of ways. And we never got a chance to see that. So again, even though you haven't seen him play for a while, the plan is still pretty much the same because guess what? The Packers didn't replace him or upgrade the position or do anything to move forward. We are still stuck
It's
in
just
neutral.
like every other position.
Yeah, we're running on the treadmill hill here. We're not moving forward. So Tunyan's going to have a role, obviously. Someone I talked about who just had thumb surgery. I believe it's thumb or finger. Irv Smith Jr., he missed pretty much the entire year last year as well. He is a young, athletic, great tight end who has zero competition. He is supposed to be ready for week 1. He's currently drafted as tight end 18, 151, right after Robert Tonyan. Again, he's free. And if you're saying if you ask me if I have any less confidence in Irv Smith than Dawson Knox, I don't. I think they're the exact same in terms of value. Dawson Knox is going 84 overall as tight end 9. So, like, if you don't get a top tier tight end, take one or two of these free guys at the end, I think.
I had to take a year off this past year because the year before I was all in, sold on whoever the hell was the tight end for the New York Jets, and that
Herdman?
I mean I could just say Jets and you would know that went terribly.
Yeah.
Um, I am all in on David Njoku this year. Where is he ranked for you on your rankings?
My rankings are ADP.
Just overall tight end rankings.
He's in that same exact tier as Irv Smith, Robert Tunyon. So, like, he's low, but he's not that
Yeah,
that tier is 20 guys.
yeah.
Plain and simple.
I love Njoku. We've talked about Amari Cooper. He cannot play outside. Come at me. I don't care. I'm not wrong. Um, Quarterbacks, inexperienced quarterbacks, obviously Brissett has played a lot of games, but does he really have a firm grasp of this offense? Who knows? I feel like he's going to go to Njoku. The Browns just also gave him a lot of money, so they kind of have to use him. And when Deshaun Watson is back, I think he can better utilize Njoku than Baker Mayfield ever could. So I'm really all in on this guy, and I hope I don't get burned like I did for that guy with the Jets 2 years ago. But for me, it's just all signs point up on a team that needs targets, and his role seems pretty bulletproof to me.
Yeah, when you're evaluating tight ends, you're essentially just looking at who is going to get the opportunities. And usually it's who's going to get the opportunities in the red zone. And in both cases, David Njoku is going to get the opportunities. And in the past, he has gotten those opportunities and he has shat on them. He has completely squandered them. And could he do that again? Absolutely. But to your point, because they paid him, they're investing in him, they're going to give him the opportunities again. Will he take it and, flourish? He could. He certainly is athletic and has the build of a modern day tight end. Could it also be Harrison Bryant who ends up getting the most targets in the tight end room because David Njoku fumbled it 4 times in week 1? Sure. But it's a risk worth making.
Let me ask you a question. Would it not be the most Browns thing ever to just keep feeding Njoku even if he's bad so that the spotlight's on him and not Deshaun Watson and 24 other women?
Maybe we'll see. I'm excited to see the trash talk and the celebrations about towels and stuff during AFC North games. That's all I care about. Other tight ends, again, right after him, AFC North, Hayden Hearst. He's the starting tight end in Cincinnati. Value him as you valued CJ Uzama last year. It's not high, but he's a bye week fill-in. Go ahead, whatever. Evan Engram's after him. We talked at the beginning of the show. He has been bad in camp. His potential sky high. It always has been. But if somehow he gets cut, I think you can replace Dan Arnold there. He's also super athletic. I think the tight end position should have value in the Doug Peterson offense. If Evan Engram's incapable of doing it, Dan Arnold could be the guy. But I think we need to pay attention to the Jaguars' tight end room during the preseason. I think it's an interesting spot.
It is absolutely wild that this man made a Pro Bowl over Robert Tunyon 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely insane. He is not good at football. For whatever reason, granted it was Urban Meyer, he liked to, not utilize Dan Arnold, laugh at the name, say what you will. He almost set up Jacksonville franchise record. And what did they do to reward him? They brought in Evan Engram, a guy who couldn't catch, but gave him a lot of money. I mean, either way, one of the tight ends is going to eat on this offense. I don't know who to pick. I'd probably lean Arnold, but I mean, Engram, if he can learn how to not have hands made out of stone, sky's the limit for him.
Well, the problem with Engram, too, like he has hands made out of stone right now. If he figures out how to catch, do you have any trust he stays healthy?
No.
There's so many red flags.
I forgot about that too. Yeah, what is he? Has he even played 14 games this season since his rookie year? I'd have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll quickly name a few more tight ends, not because all of these guys are interesting, but I just want to feed into the point that after the first two tiers of tight ends, essentially after Dallas Goedert, I think all of these guys are sort of the same. I think Austin Hooper in Tennessee now, he's going as tight end 28, 157.5 overall. I think he's probably a 500 to 600 yard guy with touchdowns. I think he's interesting. Tyler Higbee's going right before him. He is going to have the same exact role. Noah Fant is in Seattle now. I think Geno Smith will probably utilize him, or I suppose Drew Lock if he somehow wins that job. He's going as tight end 25. I think he's interesting. Kyle Rudolph still is unowned after the report that he's probably going to soak up Rep Gronkowski's role in Tampa. He's worth the pickup right now. I have him on a bunch of teams. If he looks like he's going to be the receiving guy, then shit, or the red zone guy, then he's going to have value. And if he doesn't, then again, you drop him for somebody like Gerald Everett, who I was pretty high on until about an hour ago when I heard Donald Parham has been looking super good in camp. But we'll see there. After that's David Njoku. We already talked about him. Brevin Jordan, second-year tight end in Houston. He is the exact same situation as Nico Collins, and he was utilized a lot more in the second half of last year as well. Adam Troutman, someone everyone thought was a super sleeper last year, who everyone wanted. He was injured last year. You should have zero different feelings this year, in my opinion. Anybody else? Jonnu Smith wasn't utilized at all last year. Again, injuries as well. He's fucking worth it. He's being paid so much money. They have to use him. There's so many fucking tight. They're all the same. They're all the same. So, shit. Ricky Seals-Jones, he's the starter for the Giants. They're gonna use him. He's tight end 42. What are we doing?
Well, I
Fucking
mean,
Tommy Tremble's ahead of him.
to your point about Rudolph, I mean, people forget 2016 to 2018. I had to look it up just to make sure. He was a top 9 tight end PPR 3 years in a row. The only reason he went down was because the Vikings brought in Irv Smith Jr. and cut his role in half. He has played every single game of the season except for 1 year since 2014. Brevin Jordan is a guy that I just threw a late pick on last year in Dynasty, and was he the sexiest tight end playing 9 games, finishing as tight end 44? No, but to your point, I mean, he didn't play till week 8. He got some good amount of targets. Couldn't really bring him in, but 3 touchdowns in 9 games. If you don't get one of the elite options, it's kind of as good as it gets in the current NFL. So, to your point, they're all kind of the same. That their tight ends are kind of like quarterbacks to me. If you don't get an elite option, just don't really bother. I mean, there's no point. There are so many guys that can help you out.
And you can stream them pretty easily too. You're just looking for touchdown upside. The last one I just want to talk about, I'm not sure if there's been a player this offseason that's been hyped up more than him. I'd have to think about it, but he's been hyped up a ton. That's Alberto in Denver. He's been hyped up so much, and he's going as tight end 24, 160 overall. That doesn't make sense. There's a disconnect there. He's massive. He's hyper athletic. He looked pretty good in limited playing time last year. Obviously, rookie tight ends are never expected to do anything. Second-year player this year. I think he's going to have a pretty big role. They also drafted Greg Dulcich, who's going just a few spots behind him. I don't think Dulcich is going to overtake him. He's really talented as well. I just think he's a year away. But whoever wins that tight end battle could realistically be a top 10 tight end for the year. I truly believe that. So watch that training camp battle. For Flurry Sports, we're actually going to have someone in training camp there this weekend, I believe. And I gave him strict directions that you need to watch Alberto and Greg Dulcich, because that's going to be super important. But yeah, whoever wins that battle, honestly, value them like you would value Dawson Knox. I truly believe that.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it is August 3rd, and they only, I mean, if we're looking at the team with the injury to their wide receiver core, to Tim Patrick, they have 3 wide receivers right now. I listed the guys behind the top 3 wide receivers. Heaven forbid KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, or Sutton go down for the season. That tight end spot is all that much more important. Even you got to admit, or you got to think at least one of the 3 isn't going to make it all 16 games. So somebody's going to get looks all the time. And again, this is kind of the Bermuda Triangle of the draft. I don't really know where else I was going with that, but just a lot of guys just clustered there, and there's some potential there. I don't know what that has to do with the Bermuda Triangle, but I tried something. It fell a little short, just like some of the lottery tickets.
True. That can be the wide receiver trio's nickname, though. Maybe that's what you
Bermuda
meant.
Triangle.
Yeah.
3 years in a row, one has torn their ACL. That is insane.
Great stat to be a part of. But yeah, Tim Patrick, though, also, like, yes, him going down means more targets going around. But in my opinion, he was also possibly their best red zone target. He was a pretty effective. I mean, obviously, the fucking catchphrase of our fantasy show last year is all Tim Patrick does is catch touchdowns. And that's a real thing. Like, he's really good in the red zone. And you know who else is probably going to be pretty good in the red zone? A 6'5", 258-pound super athletic tight end named Albert. I'm going to try the last name. Okwuga.
Just stop.
Google it. And well, actually, is Chukwunanuikia? Is that his middle name, or is it a two-parter?
It's got to be his middle name, and I think you just probably butchered it.
I don't think so. Does anyone else have no one else has a middle name listed. I think he's got a 2-parter, 50-letter last name. You can call him Alberto, though. That's kind of what I've been doing. They even got it in parentheses there. But yeah, look at him. He's free at the end of drafts for some reason. It kind of blows my mind with how much people have been hyping him up. But whatever. Trevor, is there anything else, anybody else you want to talk about before we switch shows here?
Just don't be that guy. I mean, you can't. I have a love-hate relationship for people who fill their starting lineup before their bench. I love it because you're an idiot and somebody probably fell for me, but I hate it because as a person who likes to think they know what they're doing in fantasy, it's like nails on a chalkboard. So if you fill your running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, good for you. Do not draft a kicker or a defense before the last 2 rounds, ever. And that's even if you want to take a kicker in the last round.
Fair enough. I did make a list that I didn't look at until now. So really quick, I do just want to mention Mark Engram. We don't know what the Alvin Kamara suspension is going to be. Mark Ingram is being drafted, but maybe a little bit too low. So if you are doing a 0 RB draft strategy, like the video that I have coming out tomorrow does, we drafted a 0 RB draft just to see what would happen. He's the perfect guy because more than likely he's going to be the starting running back at the beginning of the year. We will find out if it's going to be like a month or 2 games or whatever. But if you can get a starter week 1 in like the 12th round, you got to pull the trigger on that. I think it makes too much sense.
And that's even if Kamara isn't suspended, which is possible because of how long the time frame is. We've talked about Kamara not being effective in goal-to-goal situations. Who will be? Clearly Mark Ingram. He does not go away like a bad cold.
He does not. And we won't either. While we are taking a break, we will be back in like 10-ish minutes with Lombardi Sweep. It's a Packers podcast. So if you are interested in the Green Bay Packers, like the great Aha on Twitch commented, Go Pack Go, come back in about 10 minutes. We'll be talking about Packers training camp, Packers stars, people who suck. I will not sugarcoat it. We will talk about it with Luke Reimer as well. Should be joining us. He was actually at camp, and we'll see Janet Wilson. I don't know. We'll find out. See you in 10 minutes. Goodbye, everyone.